Hello and welcome to another episode of the Doster, T.O. and Phantom podcast. Yes, we are back. It is the DTF podcast. We are coming to you live Thursday morning. It's 11:15 in the a.m. in the Eastern time zone, the only legitimate time zone. Thursday, April 28th. Rob Doster here. I got John Fanta. I got Terrence Oglesby. Gentlemen, it's been a while since we were able to connect. We have a lot that we need to get into, a lot that we need to discuss. But first and foremost, can I just say, let me quote Ari Gold when I say, get the fuck out. Mark Emmert's gone. He's gone. Mark Emmert's been fired. See you later.
Done.
Bye-bye. He's gone. He's done.
Was it fired? Was it fired, or was it like he's still collecting checks on the way out of the door? He needed a farewell tour.
They described it in the release as mutually parted ways, which in other words is he was let go. Yeah.
And he still has 14 months to be able to, until the NCAA finds something, which, by the way, with the speed that the NCAA works, it's they're probably going to have an interim before they actually hire somebody in June of 2023.
It's the collegiate version of the DMV is the NCAA. Like anything that can take a little too long will. So we'll see how that goes. Mark Emmert, man, congratulations, man. He collected a lot of checks for not doing a whole lot. For basically being a dartboard. That's what Mark Emmert. He got paid a lot of money for being a dartboard. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, we'll get into Emmert in a second. Let's just T.O., how you doing? I know you went to the beach. Fanta, how you doing? I know that you moved. Just recap me a little bit on your lives. I haven't talked to you guys. It feels like in forever. I feel like a void in my life that I haven't seen you guys every Monday morning.
That's true. I'll start, I guess. My vacation was fantastic. Went 6 days for the kids' spring break. Went down to the Bahamas, and I got some sun, which is good, but I also took some fairly unflattering photos without a shirt on, which it inspired me to join the keto movement. So I'm on day 4 of the just keep going. I'll wake up in the next 10 seconds, so just don't think anything about it. But no, I'm not going to say much needed time off because, I mean, guys, as you both know, it's very time consuming, but it's hardly work. I think that's, I think that's fair to say. But it was good to spend time with my family and strictly focus on my family for about a week. So that was nice. And I'm in pretty good mood, sugar deprived, but in pretty good mood and already starting to twiddle my thumbs a little bit because this transfer portal stuff, it's just so nuts. I don't know how to keep up with it.
I like how you say I focused, spend time focusing on my family when every single night when you were in the Bahamas, you were texting me like, who should I bet on tonight? Who are we betting on?
Right.
Who we got? We got the Raptors tonight. We got the 76ers tonight.
Well, that was the only time it was quiet. So like I would be, I would go and watch the games, and down in the Bahamas, you can't get it in your room. So they force you to go to the sports book to watch the game. So I was like, well, I'll put $100 on a game or something just to make it a little more interesting. So that's basically where it was at.
There you go. Fanta, how'd the move go?
Well, the move went well. It went very well. Credit to my better half because she made it a lot easier than I would have made it. I'm not an organized person. Shocker. I know. It's really stunning. So here's the thing. You guys know this, or maybe you don't. We talked about the laundry issues in college, and some of those issues have followed me after college. And so, I had boxes and boxes and boxes of just randomness. And somehow she's come to organize it. One, because I think it needed to get organized, and two, because she's not going to live with an unorganized human being, which I totally understand. So I've been trying to, the do it at home tasks, the vacuuming, the making sure things are put together. We tried to put together a desk. I am not exactly Joseph the Carpenter. So I'm a little bit better near the hardwood of a college basketball court. But the move has gone well. For those who don't know, I also cover spring sports. So I was just on a golf course in Georgia the last 72 hours, not too far from Terrence Oglesby. I should have booked this in mind so that I could have driven to T.O.'s house and we would have done the podcast from there. But I didn't put enough thought. I didn't put enough thought into it. I still want you to host us for a summer retreat down south.
We'll certainly do that. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but Clemson's golf course was named the #1 university golf course in 2021. And I'm a member over there. So if you guys want to come down and drink a few cold ones and slap the ball around and lose some golf balls, we can definitely do
How
that
good of a golfer are you, Terrence?
I'm okay. I'm pretty athletic, so I picked it up okay. I'm about 80s to low 90s, depending on the day.
Wow. Field of 68 Open might have to happen. I would love to
that
see
would be big
different
time.
Foursomes, different pairs.
I like that idea.
That would be great. A Field of 68 golf tournament.
Who do you think is winning that?
Humble plays a lot of golf.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's got to be Hummel.
That sure as hell. It sure as hell ain't Carter Elliott. I mean, he'll dress like Tiger, but he ain't playing like him.
No, my best round ever as an 82. So I wanted to get good enough to play bogey golf where I've accomplished that. So I'm not one of these guys that go out and putt all the time. You know, it is what it is.
I'll be out there and I'll drink a lot of beers on the course, and that's about what I provide. Have you guys seen that the video of the guy that says we're gonna play a little game called whack fuck, and the guy swings a golf club and he goes whack fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my brother basically. My brother golfs barefooted, and then he has a weird stance when shooting his driver. So he'll lay his beer down, tee up, no practice swing for the fences.
Is he from Tennessee?
He is, sir. He is, but he's a fun one to golf with too.
T.O.,
he golfs barefoot.
Every time you tell a story about your brother, I'm like, I just want to hang out with this dude.
You got to.
I just want to kick it with the whole Oglesby clan, man.
He just left. Wild. He just left. He's the lightest packer ever. So for those who don't know, my brother lives in Scandinavia, lives in Norway, and he gets to the airport, which is about a 2-hour drive from where he's at. He gets to the airport in Oslo, and he forgets all of his luggage. Forgot his luggage on his porch at his house. And he said, well, to hell with it. I have my passport. I'm just going to go anyway. So he came over with no luggage. He forgot his luggage. He's like, yeah, I went out last night. I was like, really? So he came over. He Allen Iversoned it. And for people who don't know, Allen Iverson wouldn't pack bags. He'd just go shopping at whatever city he was in. So he Allen Iversoned it, came, stayed in our basement, and then went home. Didn't have much to pack. So it kind of worked out perfect. So he's a wild boy. He sent me pictures from the golf course where he's standing on top of the golf cart and holding out his golf club like a Spartan would hold a sword, like a statue. So like he's a wild boy. He's a wild boy. He's got to be a part of the Field of 68 golf tournament for sure.
Right.
Yeah. We'll get him down there.
Big packs.
All right, we got a lot to talk about today. Hunter Dickinson is back. I don't think we've talked about that yet. I don't think we've talked about Oscar Tshiebwe coming back. I don't think we've talked about Armando Bacot or Caleb Love or RJ Davis coming back. I know T.O.'s gonna be happy about that. His ACC looks like it might have two of the best teams in the country next year. I want to specifically pick your guys' brains on the difference now between the college game and the pro game because of the incentives that all of these big guys are going to have to come back to school thanks to NIL. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, we got to talk about this Mark Emmert situation because I think that part of the reason why college sports are in the kind of disarray that they are in right now, and they are in such a weird spot and such a transitional spot and such a place where nobody knows what the fuck is going on, is because of the utter lack of leadership at the top of the NCAA. And that falls not just on Mark Emmert, but mostly on Mark Emmert because he's the president of the organization. He is not just a figurehead that stands up there and takes bullets like Roger Goodell does for the NFL. Like, he needs to make some decisions. There has never been a moment in the history of college athletics that has been as momentous and as pivotal as what we are in right now. NIL is a thing. The transfer portal is a thing. Immediately eligible transfers are a thing. You have more money coming into college athletics than we've ever seen before. We have billionaires going out for Miami University and basically just buying these players with whatever life, fitness, water, life wallet, whatever the hell you want to call it. All of these NIL deals, these guys are dropping bags and bags and bags of money. We have fucking collectives with 8 figures worth of dollars in there. I was just talking with a guy from one team that basically said all of the football players at that school have a base $60,000 salary out of this collective that has been created. There's no rules in place. There are no guardrails or no rules. There's no one that is out to. And here's the thing. All right, here's number one for my rant. The money that these kids are getting is not NIL money, right? We call it NIL money because you are now allowed to capitalize off of your name, image, and likeness, but it is pay for play. And I personally, I don't give a shit. Like, if those kids can make their money, it's been stacked against the players for long enough that I'm happy that these kids are able to get paid, but there are no rules in place. There's nothing that has been able to determine what exactly NIL money is and what exactly you are allowed to do and you're not allowed to do to try to limit it for pay for play. And we keep calling it NIL because these kids are getting money from it, but it's not. It's collectives paying these kids to go to the school, right? It's like the John Ruiz or whatever his name is from Miami are paying these players, Nigel Pack, Norshad Omier, to come to Miami to play basketball. They're getting $400,000 a year. It's essentially a salary. So
is that what Ormier is getting to, or Ormier?
It's up there.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not going to say it definitively, but from he's making quite a bit of money too. Either way, it's not. This is not name, image, and likeness because Mark Emmert and the NCAA have not come out and actually defined anything for what it should be. Right? They've not told you what the NIL stuff is. Mark Emmert is basically just sitting there saying, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just going to sit here with my dick in my hand. I'm going to wait for Congress try to make a decision for me. Like
what decision are they going to make?
I don't know what Congress would say. I don't even know if there's a decision.
It's illegal.
I don't know. I don't.
If they've said they can't make a decision because how are they going to, unless student athletes and the NCAA are forming collective bargaining, there's no way to regulate this.
There has to be something better than what we have right now. And
we couldn't have expected for there to be something better than there is right now. NCAA,
which is why you need some kind of leadership. The situation that we're in right now.
You need to change structure.
You need one something. You need something, not just one doofus sitting there not doing a damn thing. He makes $2.7 million for what? What is he making that $2.7 million for? That when we are at a point in college where it feels like everything is falling apart, right? Everything is changing. The amount of change from what college athletics was in 2019 before the pandemic hit to what it is at this very moment is seismic. Right? Like you probably wouldn't recognize it from 2019 to 2022. There's been so much that has changed, and there's been no change in the way that this is structured, the way that we have this, the rules that are in place. There's been no definition of what actual NIL money is. There's been nothing. Mark Emmert has done nothing. And honestly, like I've tried to stay away from hammering this guy too much, but like if you look at his track record, how long does it take to actually prosecute these and investigate this stuff that came from the FBI in September 26, 2017. We're going to be at 5 years removed from it, right? How badly did he butcher all the Penn State stuff, right? With Sandusky and punishing that program and then revoking it a year later because he realized he fucked that up so bad. I think there's nothing that surmises what his legacy is for the NCAA than the last time that we're going to see Mark Emmert publicly stepping on a stage, giving a trophy to a guy with 5 level 1 violations hanging over his head for winning the national title and saying the Kansas City Jayhawks. That right there sums up everything you need to know about Mark Emmert's tenure as the president. The reason why we are in a place right now where it feels like no one knows what the hell is going on and college athletics feels like the wild, wild west is because there is no leadership. And here's the other problem. He's got 14 months left before he has to be forcibly moved, basically, right? Before they tell him to get the hell out of his office. These are the most important 14 months. Like that. Think about how much changes. Think about 14 months ago, where we were and where we are now in college athletics. Think about what can happen in the next 14 months. We need some kind of leadership in there, someone making decisions, someone to try to put some guardrails so it's not just every player is putting their name in the transfer portal to see where they're going to end up getting a $400,000 offer from some billionaire who decided, hey, you know what? I saw this team play in the Elite Eight. They were fun. Now I'm going to go make my money. I'm going to go spend my money, seeing if I can make this program be good. Because I have nothing else to do and I have $30 billion and I'm bored of shit.
That's the problem you run into, is because whenever you're dealing with some of these major cities like a Miami, for example, or even I'm telling you guys, I think there's one sleeping giant up there in the Northeast, St. John's. Like there's money up the thing. When you're running into these multi-billionaires, they're going to be able to just spend how they want to. And it's going to turn into basically how European soccer is, where some of these majorly funded schools are now, but now it's going to the players. It's just been a difference of how you can do it. Now, let me ask you guys this, and I want to ask Fanta as well. Could this have been done differently if the players had developed a union they had been talking about for so long? Would it have been a little bit more manageable at that point?
The answer to the question is yes. If we had collective bargaining of some sort, or some sort of a standardized system that would allow for these negotiations to take place, there may be guardrails set in terms of how much and in terms of stating the reason as to how this deal came through and some of the particulars that needed to happen. Yeah. But right now, you have, and this is crazy to think about, but I was told last week that there was a low major school that reached out to a player from a power conference program. The player had no interest in transferring. None. This low major reached out to him and said, we can give you $200,000 to come play for us. Now, he's not going there because you're taking the $200K to play for a program that's on ESPN Plus and amounts to, at the end of the day, not a whole lot for that kid. Okay. But the point is, these things are happening every single second and minute right now. So here's the first thing that comes to mind with this, and I'm going to twist it up a little bit. And on the field of 68, we tell it like it is. The very thing that coaches are angry about and frustrated about and ranting about is the same thing that they're waking up every day and trying to play to that system because they have to right now.
Right.
They have to go and get after kids. Is their job harder? Is their life harder? Absolutely it is. And I do not envy, I guess my checking account would say differently, but I really don't envy the life of a college coach with the stresses that it entails day and night right now. But do I feel bad for the coaches? No. They make a lot of money to be the leader of their respective programs. But there's no answer to this. And the reason why is because the NCAA as an association has been stuck in archaic mode for a long, long time. And there needs to be structural change in what happens to the association and what the association is doing for their member institutions. And it needs to shift rapidly. And that's why Rob's point about this being the most critical time in college sports history, I have to agree, because we can't just hire. There just can't be a leader hired that changes everything. The role of Mark Emmert to begin with is not a role that's sustainable for any sort of success. That role needs to change and have actual power. Like, have the actual power to take out the hammer and throw it down on situations and speak out on stuff that's happening in the college sports scene. And it also has to be someone who gets the intricacies of college athletics. We talked about this last year, and I want to bring it up again. Guys, one of the problems, it's like a lot of corporations that end up going this way. One of the problems with the NCAA is that they have people in their top meeting rooms that have no idea what happens inside an athletic department day in and day out. It's chancellors, it's former secretaries for the United States, and it's a lot of university presidents. And it's no disrespect to those people. They made a lot of money and are powerful. And in my next life, I'd like to be them in terms of their wallet. But do those people know what's going on inside a training room, inside a locker room, inside a practice facility every single day? Because it's those types of things right now where the backroom deals are happening, where the phone calls are happening. Those people don't have the degree of a clue to then apply their decision-making to that. Call it what it is. It's pay for play. The sooner that you acknowledge that it's pay for play, the sooner that you can figure out a policy that fits pay for play. Because
Well,
right
I
now
wanna,
you're calling it something that it's not. It's not just name, image, and likeness. It's
And
not
that's
that.
I
agree
real
with him
quick,
there.
Tio. I want to
Yeah.
clarify one thing on that. So when you are bringing in the transfers, right? When you are bringing in guys that are not proven at a certain school, then it is pay for play. There's no way that Nigel Pack is worth $400,000 to Miami for any kind of name, image, likeness stuff. But a guy like Hunter Dickinson coming back to school, getting a 7-figure deal, that is the kind of name, image, and likeness stuff that I think is a good thing. Oscar Tshiebwe getting $2 million coming back to Kentucky to be able to play. Reigning National Player of the Year. He has value. He's going to get deals with like major corporations nationally. Same thing with Hunter Dickinson. Like they are the faces of college basketball and they've earned it. So that's the NIL stuff that makes sense. The issues that I have are with these guys that are putting their names in the portal just because they are trying to find, like Bill Self talked about this the other day. They're
Kevin
going to the
McCullough.
portal. Yeah, they're going to the portal because they've seen these other guys get these huge deals and they're like, wow, what am I worth on the open market? And the issue that we're running into that you need to find a way to solve, to me, the number one thing that you have to do is is to create an incentive to go back to school. Something like whatever you get, like the program that you're leaving is allowed to find a way to match that, right? And if they match it, then you got to stay there. If you come back to school, then the school specifically is allowed to put X amount of dollars into a trust that you get when you leave the program or when you get your degree, right? Something where if you've been there for 1 year, you can get $10,000 put in. If you come back for your second year, you can get $50,000 put in. If you come back for a third year, you can get $100,000 put in. And then as soon as you get your degree, that money goes straight into your bank account. Something
which is exactly
lines, right?
exactly what Dabo Swinney suggested like 4 years ago, and he absolutely got freaking butchered for it.
Well,
like that's
here's
exactly what he suggested. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: you could still make your money. Like you could still get whatever NIL deals you want. You could still get paid by these collectives. Like that stuff happens. But this is an incentive to stay at the university because right now, when like if you look at any other sport, right? You mentioned European soccer, T.O. Guys can transfer and be eligible immediately, and they can transfer these clubs and these organizations, but they sign contracts, which means that there is a reason keeping them there, which is why you hear all of this. Like we will buy this player, we'll purchase this player's contract. They can't leave because they have 3 years left on their deal. Same thing with the NBA, same thing with the NFL. There's barriers in place that create a financial disincentive to leave. Right. If you want to buy out of your contract, you got to pay $1 million and they'll rip up the contract, whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in the college athletic space, which is why it's become a free market. So there needs to be something that is created that forces a disincentive to leave. Because right now, look, if I was in college right now and I saw Nigel Pack get $400,000, I'll put my name in the portal to see what I could get, especially if the place that I'm at doesn't have a collective or doesn't have because $400,000, man. It's
a lot of money.
6 figures. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, especially the college kids that don't have any, they don't have any expenses either.
Yes, you're not paying for housing. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you make your point. Every one of these college coaches that are complaining about it would do the same fucking thing if they were in college right now. If you had the opportunity to make that money, you would do the same thing. And I don't want to hear otherwise. If you say that you wouldn't, I am calling you a liar.
Well, here's now this is me just thinking out of the box, but I really like Fanta's point of saying, hey, let's acknowledge that it's pay for play. Because if you're able to do that, set some parameters over how much money you're able to spend on your team. And if you have like these collectives, you change it to where they're NCAA sponsored collectives and those collectives are regulated, then you can have some issues to where the max the collective could use is right at $5 million. That's how much you could use, or $2 million. You probably don't even need $5 million. You probably need $2 million. That's how much a collective could use on your selected roster on top of scholarships. Now, but you can only do that if you acknowledge the pay for play scheme. So here's the thing: is Nigel Pack worth $400,000 to some life wallet? No, he's not. I don't care what anybody says. Kind of money right now. If he goes on and he's a great NBA player, yada, 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 could be. But as of right now, he averaged 18 some odd points a game at Kansas State, who finished in the bottom third of their league. And now he's going to Miami to replace Charlie Moore. It was Charlie, and it is what it is. But if you have a way of regulating these collectives and have the NCAA and the schools sponsor these collectives, that's down. Now they can still make their money doing commercials or whatever, but the collectives, I think, are part of the problem.
You know what's funny about, well, the collectives are the problem because it's collectives that are paying the money. But you know what's funny about it, Fanta? We're talking about how Nigel Pack is not worth $400,000 to Life Wallet, but the number of times that people have said Life Wallet in reference to Nigel Pack not being worth $400,000 has probably gotten them more than $400,000 worth of publicity. So you know what? Maybe making horrible deals is a smart way to do it in the long run. I'm going to pay $3 million to bring. I'm not even going to make the joke. Not going to make the joke. I'm not going to go there.
Okay, so here's what, and I'd like to hear the joke, but you're not going there. I think I'll cut it out. But I was going to say I'm going to pay $3 million to bring to the field of 68. No, keep it in. In.
I didn't hear it. My internet went out because I'm a freaking turd. What is that? What'd you say?
He's paying $3 million for to join the field of 68. That's amazing.
That dude's the absolute worst.
Okay,
worst.
So here's the thing. Dabo's idea, in theory, is a great idea. He's like, in that capsule, he's right. And Clemson could pull that off. The infrastructure is not in place in these athletic departments to handle this. It wasn't in place before a pandemic. It sure as hell isn't in place after a pandemic.
Right.
The very reason why coaches are getting canned and why there's so much movement in college sports right now from a personnel and from a staff standpoint, whatever it may be. Guys, I've had the opportunity to cover athletic departments closely in my early career. There's never been more turnover that I've seen than there has been over the last year and a half. Right. For a lot of different reasons. Finances are the main one. But my point is, we could talk about a trust fund and that there's an incentive for a kid to stay at a school. But if you start building out those types of figures, and this is where I think we could be heading, if you start building out those types of figures, what's going to happen, in my opinion, is you're going to have football become its own thing, which it already is basically, but really its own thing. You're going to have basketball essentially become its own thing too, if you're doing this to this degree in hoops. What does that mean? That means that the sports that people do not watch at the college level as much, the soccers of the world, the baseballs of the world, softball, people watch them, gymnastics, but not as many people. That means that the scholarship system for those sports is either going to be greatly altered, or the idea of any sort of regulation of a playing field in those sports is gone. It's gone. Just this week, the college baseball coaches are trying to make a policy that allows for them to not have a cap on their scholarships. They're seeing the writing on the wall. In other words, the whole reason why you have an athletic department is to be able to regulate your sports and be able to provide opportunities for student athletes. But if your trust funds for your major sports, if that's where your money's going to, which I get, then you're not going to be able to, the majority of schools aren't going to be able to hand out scholarships to the other sports, which means how are you fielding teams and how are you getting student athletes and how are you functioning as a department as a whole? Because that's part of it. So the whole landscape is shifting. This goes beyond basketball. If you're going to monetize everything you'd like to monetize, at the end of the day, guys, we could say follow the money. But at the end of the day, if universities are getting involved, and we are going to call this what it is, pay for play, there's only so much money to go around for schools that are already in debt based off of a global pandemic and the other things that are happening on their respective campuses. Connecticut is in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of debt, Rob. We read this story like every summer. They're not the only one. It's a deli line of schools that are like, we can't afford to. Look at the UConn ticket sales. They just went up by a large sum of money. So athletic departments are having trouble as is. If we're building out more financial structure for them to make this NIL more of a pay for play, which is what it is, and administrators are acknowledging that, then there are going to be other ripple effects. And this goes back to the very point we started with. There needs to be real conversations that happen at the NCAA that make this leadership change meaningful. You've got to make it impactful.
And part of the problem is that we've had all of these changes in the way that college athletics operates, and it feels like there's been no structure put in place because there's been no leadership.
Right.
There really hasn't. There's been no leadership. Well, that's enough about Emmert. That's enough about the NCAA. Let's talk about actual college basketball, because we did get some good news, man. Look, we can rant and rave about the NIL and all of this stuff, and I am a firm believer that once you do get some guardrails put in place, once you do get some structure in terms of the rules, once there is some uniformity in terms of what each state is able to do with this, we're going to see. And once you kind of get through this glut of players with COVID years and 6 years and all of that kind of stuff, we're going to find a new normal and things are going to settle out. The best part about this, we get Hunter Dickinson back. We get Oscar Tshiebwe back. We get Armando Bacot back. We get Caleb Love back. We get RJ Davis back. Same way we got Ochai Agbaji back last year, which helped Kansas win a national title. There's a lot of good about where we are right now. We need to figure it out. Like we need to figure it out to make sure that it runs a little bit better. But look, college basketball is in a good place when you have all of these stars coming back. Everybody knows Hunter Dickinson. Everyone's going to know Oscar Tshiebwe, right? T.O., let me ask you this. The thing that I've noticed throughout this trend is that big guys have been the guys more likely to come back.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation with someone the other day. It feels like at this point, the college game and the pro game has never been more different in the way that you have to operate to win.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said there. And especially if you look at the guys coming back, like you've already mentioned, the Dickinsons of the world, the Oscar Tshiebwes of the world, Kofi Coburn last year. Like, here's the thing, the flying up and down the floor right now, and you have to have bodies to be able to keep up with it. These aircraft carriers like a Hunter Dickinson, they're going to struggle at that level. And if you're going to be fighting for a rookie minimum, or if you're going to be trying to get that second contract when you're 23, 24, why not make that NIL money like Hunter Dickinson is able to do? Because he's not going to have that same kind of career. You've seen it over the past several seasons. Where's Luka Garza? Right? Like, he's in the NBA, but he two-way deal. I think he's on a two-way deal.
He was with the Pistons for a while. He made a little bit of money, but not a
little bit. But I mean, not as much as he would have made wearing a Iowa Hawkeyes jersey this past year. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the NBA minimum. I'm wondering, are they going to raise the rookie minimum in the next CBA? Because I think that's a point of contention too. They probably won't. But at the same time, like, you can look at some of these things. Like, the incentive is to come back for some of these guys, and they can have more success playing at the college level. Look at Adama Sanogo. You think he would do well in the NBA? Nope.
Not right now.
Undersized, can't really move. I mean, I hate to say he is. And if you move him to that next level, he's going to have to guard twos, threes, and fours at the size he's at. Well, he goes to UConn. He can be really good in the Big East. Why not stay, have some success, and get your degree? And I think that's one big thing that a lot of people forget is that, hey, college degree isn't terrible. It isn't terrible. I'm lucky enough to have two of them right here. Like, a lot of people, I think, are starting to overlook the value of the college degree. And if you can make a little coin too, I think that certainly helps things.
But mostly because you can make coin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you on the degree part, but these kids are thinking of coin.
Yeah, I know that. But I think the fact that we've de-emphasized the fact that how much money you make post-degree after everything's said and done, I think it's being wildly overlooked.
Well, the problem is that's not getting
so short. Yeah, but it's so
preached.
Short-term thinking right now.
But the problem with that is, Theo, the money that you can make as an athlete is like you have a very specific and tiny window. Like the way that money for professional, I mean, you know this better than anyone.
Hey guys, you're preaching to the choir. Look, my 22
No,
jersey. You guys are going to.
I want to explain this to people that are listening. It's like
Yeah.
when you're an athlete, it's the opposite of what a normal human being's the way that they make money would be, right?
Yeah, the trajectory.
The way the normal person makes money, they get entry level, they make entry level dollars. You kind of build up. Then you get a big job, you get a big raise. You get another big job 10 years down the road, you get another big raise. By the time you're 50, 60, you're making hopefully a whole bunch of money, the most money you've ever made in your life. And that's when you can start stacking it up, get ready for your retirement. When you're an athlete, you make all of your money at the start of your career, right? From 20 to 30 is like that window when you have to make everything and maximize every single cent that you can get out of your body. And then when you retire, you get back into like Greg Oden made however many $1 million, was a GA at Ohio State at 29 years old, right? To go back and get his degree.
I was a GA at 29.
Yeah, it's
going back and having to finish.
Opposite. It's the opposite schedule. So like I understand these guys trying to get every dollar that they can, and I hope people that are listening, like that is why they're trying to maximize it, because you have this ability that is worth six figures in a lot of cases, and there's only if you have 10 years where you can make six figures off of your body, and you want to eliminate one of them, well, you're eliminating 10% of what you can actually make.
How many kids are we actually talking about, though? Like, that's my whole thing. Like, how many kids are we actually talking about? How many kids does the NCAA help?
A lot.
Just not the NCAA in particular, but the schools in particular, giving these kids scholarships. Like, how many kids does that help? People forget, like, sure, there might be guys. Let's just put a number on it. Let's just put a number on it when it comes to college basketball. 50 players, 50 maximum. The rest of the kids get scholarships. And let's not de-emphasize the value of the scholarships. A college graduate, by the time they retire, on average, makes over $1 million more than a non-college graduate. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about money? There's some money. There's something to be said there. Like, let's not de-emphasize that. I think that's important.
I'm not saying you don't have to. I'm not saying don't get a degree. I'm just saying.
Hold on, Rob. But here's the thing. Like, I de-emphasize my degree. I didn't make millions of dollars overseas. I made a fair enough living, six figures, sure. But like, I de-emphasize the value of the piece of paper, and I hate it. Now, I also understand, like, you can make some money. My number 22 jersey, you guys aren't going to believe this. It was the second highest selling jersey in the state of South Carolina my sophomore year, going into my sophomore year after my freshman year.
I believe that.
You know who's number one? CJ Spiller. I was only behind CJ Spiller in the entire state of South Carolina. That's not a lot. That? So like, I could have made some legitimate coin. Now, that would have also got me to state probably too, which is probably a good thing. Like, it would have been a good thing for me, because like I would have finished the degree the first time and wouldn't have had to slave away and freaking slave away is the wrong word, but like have to work my butt off and be a practice player at 30 years old. So
what you're saying is that we should put Field of 68 on a Oglesby jersey today and start selling those online as throwbacks.
You will sell tens and tens of those. You will sell tens and tens of those. And you know who's going to buy probably half of them is my mother. But at once upon a time. Now, not so much.
All right, so let's talk about the guys that actually came back. Hunter Dickinson.
Sorry, we got to get out of the NIL stuff. We need to talk.
Hunter Dickinson, All-American, right? Oscar Tshiebwe, All-American, right? Yeah. But I think the biggest winner so far, it's got to be North Carolina. Not only did they get all these four guys back, Gigi Jackson. Gigi Jackson just committed there. Like, this run to the Final Four has completely changed what the outlook is with Hubert Davis in this program. Correct. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Do you have North Carolina number one, Tio, heading into next season?
They got to be close. The only thing is, I'm wondering about. We felt the exact same way about UCLA and Peyton Watson coming in. Like, that's kind of my only apprehension there. But Gigi's not going to about him reclassing. I think this past season, watching some people like Amani Bates made him back off that idea to where he's not going to reclass up, but they're still going to be really good. Now, who are they going to have replacing? Huge issue, but those other four, to get four out of your top five or four out of your five starters back, I mean, that's pretty good. Hubert, man, the culture's there. I thought there was no way Caleb Love was going to come back. He looked so disinterested at times last season. I thought there's no way he's going to come back. Final Four run will change some things. It'll change some things.
I automatically think about in the current space that we're in. I think about what Jalen Washington and Seth Trimble are thinking coming into North Carolina, because when it's a great thing when you have these guys come back. Obviously, there's only so many minutes that are on the floor. What exactly they'll add, what they'll do for this program coming in. Here's the thing, though. To me, you can both say that Carolina is giving you the UCLA vibes, but you also have to acknowledge how difficult it is to make a repeat Final Four national championship game appearance. Right. It's really hard. It's really hard. There were periods where we thought Baylor could win it all. They got injured. You can't control that type of thing. And I actually think it's interesting because on my bracket, wrong, I had UCLA making an Elite Eight run. I think in another bracket, I thought that they could potentially go to the Final Four. Who'd they bow out to? Well, they bowed out to Carolina. The point is, you never know who you're running into in those 3 weeks in March. So can North Carolina go back to a Final Four and make the national championship game? Hell yeah, they can. And that's going to be the expectation heading into this year. And they could be the number one team in the country. Does that mean they will? I would go to my local Bet Rivers book. And if there were a prop on this, I would say no, because it is that hard. And psychologically, guys, they took on this role of being the hunter. This is going to be so different for them. They're not sneaking up on anybody in this upcoming season and in the NCAA tournament. And their level of publicity, Carolina always gets a lot of buzz. It's going to be even more so, especially in the first season without Kay, in a time for college basketball where the people that are running TV production units are going to be looking for any storylines. Carolina's going to lead in the buzz category heading into next season.
Absolutely.
So for me, I always look at things from a standpoint of it's really hard to duplicate success in the sport of college basketball. Carolina's had a lot of success over a long period of time, but do I think that this team is going to stay at the same level? I don't know about that because I thought that a bit of their success was lightning in a bottle that worked out for them, and they made it all the way to the national championship. They have talent, but talent doesn't always end up being the deciding factor come March. So it's hard to define what's going to happen in March Madness when you don't know what that team's going to be going through heading into that NCAA tournament.
Still going to love the pieces. Still going to love the pieces.
You
and
can
I think
love
Seth
the pieces.
Trimble's, yeah, Seth Trimble is, I don't know. We saw him last year at Peach Jam, Rob, but like elite quickness. He's not RJ Davis yet, but he's a pretty good player. And both their freshmen coming in are very, very talented. They haven't added anybody in the portal, correct?
Not yet.
No.
Yeah. That's impossible to keep up with, though. Props to Borzello for keeping up that list.
I literally have it open right now,
Lord.
so I can find know exactly what I'm looking at. It's a nightmare.
Disaster.
I do think that replacing Brady Manick is going to be something that's a little bit more difficult than people realize. For a couple reasons. One, the shooting. That's the reason why they were able to do what they wanted to do, is because they had a guy that was 6'10", that was pretty tough, right? Mm-hmm. Not a great defender, but a good enough defender that could space the floor. And not having that guy next year, I think, is going to be something that they need to figure out. So maybe it's Puff Johnson. Maybe he's the answer. Maybe it's Kerwin Walton. I don't know. I don't know anything about Jalen Washington. Do you know anything about him, T.O.?
Big body, more of a traditional big than he is. Somebody who can step out, but that's not really what he does. Maybe they'll transform him into that once it gets to campus. But as of right now, no. Yeah.
So Seth Trimble will be good. And I think that it will be helpful for him where he plays a little bit behind Caleb Love and RJ Davis, and he doesn't get thrown directly into the mix, right? He'll have time to be a 15-minute a game guy coming off the bench, and then next year step into a starting role. So I think that will be a good thing for him. As far as like the UCLA thing, like they were really good this year, right? They were a really good team this year. They finished second in the Pac-12 despite dealing with a whole bunch of COVID issues, despite having a stretch where they were shut down for like a month, right? They had a 2-week stretch where they didn't have fans in their arenas. Like they had such a weird basketball season and a bunch of injuries. Like Jaime Jaquez was never really healthy. Johnny Juzang was dealing with some of his own stuff. So to end up being a 4 seed with all of that hanging over their head, it's not a bad thing. It's not that's not the worst result.
And
but we're also talking about a Final
luck.
Four. Yeah, you got to be lucky too. Sorry, go ahead.
Lucky a little bit. Kansas got lucky along their way to a national championship, and there were a couple of times where if a possession went one way or another, things might have crashed and burned for Kansas. Facts are facts. So look, this. It's always fluid. It's always fluid. Is Carolina going to be good? You bet they are. That team's going to be loaded up. Replacing Manick is hard, but they have enough coming back, and Bacot's just a beast that if they get any semblance of backcourt rhythm, they're going to win a lot of games. A lot of games.
Yeah, I still think it's fascinating how the NIL money is. I just think it's really going to change what college basketball is compared to the NBA. I think it's only going to make the difference between the games more drastic. And I saw JJ
going to focus more on the bigs. Kind of like
you know what? I have a question. I have a question for both of you. Is there any program and coaching situation with more pressure on them in college hoops heading into next season than the Kentucky Wildcats?
John Shire.
I'm telling you,
but he's going to be given a certain amount of leash. Yeah. Like Shire's going to be given a certain amount of leash because it being his first year, he does have a lot of talent, but like Calipari, they need to make a run next year in the tournament. In my honest,
I think that they will. I think
but then when you say that they will, then they have to.
Yeah, I think this season was a little bit more difficult than people give them credit for. Like Kellen Grady was banged up at the end of the year. Severe Wheeler had 1, maybe 2 concussions. Ty Washington's ankle was never healthy, and he was dealing with some off the court stuff by the end of the season. And they reached a point where they were not the same team that they were. And once you take the guards away from that group, then it's kind of like if you're relying on Oscar Tshiebwe, who look, he deserved National Player of the Year. That dude is a role player. He is the best role player in college basketball, but his job was go out there and get a bunch of rebounds. You don't run stuff for Oscar Tshiebwe, right? And so you got to the point where they didn't have the guys they needed to score. They couldn't get stops, and they ran into a team who hit shots on the right day. Next year, they got Kason Wallace coming in, who's a stud. Antonio Reeves transferred in from Illinois State with Severe Wheeler back. Quick. CJ Frederick back. They got shooters. Damian Collins, Chris Livingston, I think are going to be able to kind of fill that 4 role with. I'm assuming one of Jacob Toppin or Keon Brooks is going to be back again next season. So I think the pieces are there. I would love to see them get upgrade at the point guard spot over Severe Wheeler. It doesn't look like that's going to be something that actually happens. I think they're going to roll into a situation where your backcourt is basically Wheeler, Reeves, and Kason Wallace, and you'll kind of figure it out from there. But I think they're going to be really good, man. I think they're going to be really good.
I'm intrigued to see what Michigan is heading into next season, because I thought that team really struggled offensively at times. And there's still a question mark as to what they're going to be on the offensive end of the floor. Make no mistake about it. Hunter Dickinson, when he asserted himself, and down the stretch in the season for Michigan, he really did. When he asserted himself and just took on that role of saying, I'm going to be that dude, it changes everything for Michigan. It changes everything in the landscape of the Big Ten. I didn't feel that rhythm early in the season. So for me, for Michigan, I'm intrigued to see who they are, guys, because I still put a question mark next to that backcourt. Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I'm interested to see what happens with, but I do love the fact that we get these guys back. And I love the fact that, and so then there you go. We started this talking about NIL and the different problems with it. There still is a lot of good, and it still was something that had to happen. Look, and we wanted it to happen. Nobody's against it. Anybody who is silly and stupid. But there's got to be a better way to exactly go about
there has to be some kind of structure, and we can put the ball in it, and we can wrap it up with this. There has to be some kind of structure in place to be able to make this work at a level that it is not currently working right now, because it's too crazy. And at the end of the day, I'm all for player movement and player empowerment and player rights and all that. But the long-term future of the game will be better when you can kind of get some more consistency and stability with the rosters where these players are not incentivized to put their name in the portal just because they can go find more money elsewhere. Find ways to get them paid and allow them to maximize the money that they get coming into their pockets, while also going back to the school that you just played for, because that level of consistency and the relationship that you get with a guy as a fan watching someone develop 2, 3, 4 years in your program, I think is a good thing for college athletics. That's how you get people to connect. That's how you get people invested emotionally into those programs. And when you're invested emotionally, you're going to be invested financially, and you're going to watch and you're going to pay attention. And that is good for everybody involved. So I think we could put a bow on it with that. Listen, this has been fun. We'll be back again, maybe next week, maybe the week after. I don't know. It's all going to depend on when T.O. over here is, when he's making his trips he's going to Turks and Caicos next week. He's going to
I'm
Fiji
done for a little while. I'm going to
that.
Sweden for the month of June. We're going to have to do shows when I'm in Sweden.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work, T.O.
I had to get my wife is born and all her family's there. We haven't been there in 3 years because of the pandemic.
It's time to go.
So we needed to go. So we're going to go for a little time there. So I can still do my work from over there. So it'll be good.
Perfect. All right, guys, this has been fun. Remember, subscribe, rate, review, like this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Do all of that stuff that makes us happy as podcasters. It really does help the channel. It helps our networks, and it helps more people find this content. So for John Fanta, for Terrence Oglesby, my name is Rob Doster. See you again next week.